Hello, welcome to Season 8 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, our theme is Make the Wives Pick, since our wives have to watch these movies with us every week, and often complain about it. We made them pick the movies this season. If you want to see the list of upcoming films and follow along, check out our website at thehorrific.com. Thanks for listening.
We are recording.
I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I had never heard of this movie. And then when I looked it up, I realized that it was starring Janelle Monáe.
Yeah.
And it made me not want to watch it.
I respect the hell out of that statement.
I have very, very deep-seated issues with her.
Oh.
And it's not even so much with her, I guess, is like the music industry. Because I feel like she was one of the first sort of manufactured pop acts that Pitchfork sold out for and backed, which I'm still convinced was payola. Like, I can't imagine any other explanation for it.
Yeah.
But I have this long-standing thing where I really, really hate it when I feel like there is a like pop star or musician who is just completely and totally manufactured and then pushed on you.
Yeah.
Because there is no reason that anyone would think that I would be a fan of Janelle Monáe, but I received a large amount of advertising for her album at the time when it came out. And it to me, it feels a lot like, conceptually like American Idol, where it's just like, oh, we have a person that can sing. Let's make them a big star. And it's like, there are so many people that work so hard for so long, you know, with a band, with music, trying to make it. And then you have people that are just sort of, it's decided that they're just going to be made into that thing, and then it works. Yeah. It's just against everything I care about with music, you know. I find it offensive. And so Janelle Monáe has then since transitioned into just sort of general celebrity status, I guess.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she's a very good actress. And so I am worried that my take on this movie may be a bit biased by all of the above. And I just wanted to give you that heads up.
Gotcha.
Before we started.
Gotcha.
So feel free to call me out if I am being too over the top with it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely understand it as well, because, like, you know, it's frustrating because you do see, like, they get like a glimpse of like, this is someone who's a little bit different. We're going to go with it. But also, I just figured your beef with her would be just because she was from Kansas City.
Oh, I didn't even know that part.
Yep.
Can I unwatch this movie?
Yes, you can. We just be like, let's just have this podcast just like, so we do like the intro and you explain it, I'll do my facts, and we'll just be like, nah. And then we'll say, all right, see you later. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't get a chance to talk about how Jenna Maloney was the other like main female, and she was the girlfriend in Donnie Darko. And
does she kill her southern accent?
She has not necessarily leveled up the acting skill.
Oh, I know, man. Jake Gyllenhaal's not here to carry you now. Exactly,
yeah. And it's like, well, when you're playing like a depressed, detached teenager, it's kind of okay. But no, she's still kind of sticking full Kristen Stewart on us, and wasn't really the best for this role, in my opinion.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, if anyone's still listening, I'll introduce it.
We're painting a good picture for this.
Indeed. In 2020, Lionsgate brought us Antebellum, a sort of horror movie about a woman who must escape a southern plantation. This movie stars Janelle Monáe and Jenna Maloney and was written and directed by Gerard Bush and Christopher Renz. This movie was released in September of 2020, and due to the coronavirus pandemic, it was available on demand in the US and in a few select theaters in other countries. It was made on a budget of $15 million and so far has made about $7 million. It can currently be rented for streaming on Amazon Prime Video.
I wonder how many like other bad movies out there come out and say like, because of coronavirus, we're actually just going to make this streaming. It's like the new like straight to DVD.
Yeah.
Not because this is I can't get, not because it's terrible. Mm-hmm. So, one fact that I have for this film is Janelle Monáe's first lead role in a feature film. That's all I can muster up, man. So that's pretty much the only fact that I have for this. There wasn't, honestly, there wasn't a lot. Anytime I did any reading about this film, it was more so like people either explaining how it's a terrible movie or people defending how it's a good movie. And I just didn't really read about either one because I just, it's just my opinion.
Right.
And so, I was just like, this is okay. We get what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I heard no press or advertising or anything for this movie. I just assumed that it was like an older one that I had missed. I didn't even know it was a recent thing. And so I was curious to know like how Katie found out about it.
Yeah, so we actually were watching, I think what happened was we were buying Get Out, but we were doing it like on Apple, like through Apple. We were just buying it there. And no. So we bought Get Out at Walmart, the Blu-ray DVD combo, but it also came with like where you could download it for free.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and one of like the ads for it was Antebellum. And so we started Antebellum. It's like, the preview, it looks super interesting. It's like, is it like going between times, what's going on here? But yeah, it was just strictly off of that. And I remember like we wrote it down thinking like, well, that might be interesting to look at one day. And she remembered it.
Yeah. Yeah. With this one, I kind of kept, so I didn't know what to expect, obviously, going into it. And it starts off with a really cool opening shot. Like the directing and filming of that very first scene, I thought was just amazing. Uh-huh. And the way that the camera was sort of like moving through the plantation, and you were seeing that it was kind of like set up to be a period piece, but it was shot really well. And it was this one long sort of continuous moving scene that ended with like the dialogue between the Confederate soldiers and the captured runaway slaves. And, that really is kind of a dark and creepy time in history. And obviously that was a terrible, terrifying situation to be in for the people involved. But just the way that scene was set up, I thought it was shot really, really well. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a really well done movie, whatever it ends up being. So it will be, a pleasant experience. But then I spent the most of the rest of the movie waiting for it to become a horror movie. And it didn't really ever do that.
Right. Well, that's my thing with this film. I feel like there were scenes that were shot, and I thought it was shot really well, like extremely well, and not just the beginning. I initially thought it was just the beginning. There were scenes in the beginning and towards the end, like when it became modern time, it's whatever. But I thought it was actually shot really well. There were some scenes that like the transition was kind of cool because like the camera rolled with the shot and continued over, like, so it rolled to the right and continued over there. I think my main kind of beef with this is like, I get the idea of what they're doing, right? The idea of what the story is, but, it was almost frustrating to me because it's, the people who need to watch a movie like this to realize how bad like slavery is, they're not going to watch it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, obviously that's a terrible idea in that it's, I don't, it's just like, I'm not learning anything new here,
Well, yeah. And so to me, it sort of reminded me a lot, and hear me out because it's going to sound ridiculous at first, but it reminded me a lot of The Passion of the Christ. That movie that Mel Gibson made that it was just like super gory. And so it's about like the crucifixion.
Yeah.
And so you just watch a guy get beat and bloodied and tortured for however long it was. And the idea of it was making you like confront or face like the reality of how difficult that was and how painful and terrible it was. And, you should rethink, not taking your religion seriously or whatever. And I kind of feel like there was a certain similarity with this of like really putting it into your face, like how terrible slavery was.
Right.
And I agree, like I'm not trying to belittle that at all or to say it isn't. And I actually gave Sarah a really hard time because she's like, there was nothing horror about that movie. And I'm like, oh, so you think owning other people and torturing them isn't horrific? And she's like, well, that's not what I meant. But I totally called her out and it felt great. It felt really good because I took the moral high ground. Yeah. But no, but as far as like the way that the movie was made, the way that the story was developed and the way that it was all presented, there was nothing like horror about it. It didn't develop, an evil bad guy. It was just kind of brushed over who was behind it or why or what was going on.
Right.
You didn't really have a lot of scenes with like a lot of anticipation for the characters where you're like, oh, I hope they make it out or they're right on the edge of this. It all just kind of flowed. It felt like there wasn't really a lot of, anybody trying to do something generally was able to do it. And so it was like the thing that I think would have made the good horror movie had already happened when the movie started, which was, obviously she tried to escape with some friends and they got captured. And that escape scene could have been really, intense if they're, hiding in the woods and they're being chased and everything. But it never really built anticipation. It didn't really have a soundtrack that was indicative of a horror movie. And like there were scenes that were hard to watch just because slavery was a brutal thing that people did to each other, and that sucks. But to me, it didn't land as a horror movie at all.
Well, I mean, I think if we were to consider Antebellum a horror movie, then we would need to consider Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Or, Gettysburg or...
just about any war movie.
Well, yeah, any Civil War movie, but... So, if we're going to consider, like, Antebellum a horror movie, because of, like, the idea behind it, then we need to consider Django Unchained a horror movie.
Yeah.
I mean, and at least, I mean, in that story, you get to see some action, Yeah. I mean, but has the same kind of thing, and it's definitely, a fiction story.
Mm-hmm.
Fiction means not true.
Yeah.
Nice. And, it's just not what I was expecting. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't talked to Katie for 2 weeks since I realized she picked this film. So,
thank you.
We're actually splitting up.
Good.
Yeah.
That means the podcast is working the way we intended it to.
Exactly. So. Been trying to break up with her for 3 years now.
Yeah. Well, it gives us, this season has really given us an insight into our wives and how they process movies. Right. And I think we both learned some things that are not particularly pleasant. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to necessarily say about, like, I struggled with my notes with this one, so much so that I have directing was good, and then the statement that I just said, like, it was just like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. So to me, it felt a lot like a M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But without the horror elements.
Right.
And so, even like with The Village, where it's kind of a weird setup and then you have the big twist ending, and, at least it had the monsters in the forest and like the attacks and stuff, or some like unexplained stuff. This one, it took a couple of turns story-wise, and it started off with, and you had mentioned like in the preview scene, it like jumped between time. The movie starts off with Janelle Monáe's character on a plantation, and you see several characters there, and then it flashes forward to her like waking up from a dream in 2020, and you don't really know like what's going on or what the connection is between her then and her now. And she's just kind of going about her life and hanging out with friends and staying in a hotel. And then you start seeing some of the same characters that were in like leadership positions on the plantation working their way into her life. And so you have a little bit of mystery around that, but it's really almost more like a girls' night out type movie for a decent portion of that piece. So it wasn't like really building a lot of anticipation. Like you never really felt much danger or anything until she ends up in the cab and gets kidnapped. But at that point, she basically, you realize, has been kidnapped and taken to this plantation thing where you have it's presumably happening in 2020. And she's trying to escape. And so there are cell phones and things. But there wasn't really any conflict when it came time to escape. Everything just kind of went according to plan, and she got out.
Right.
And so, I don't know. It was a good twist, but there was just never any really building like anticipation or worry or any of the stuff that happens in a horror movie that pulls you in and makes you scared.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And the acting was rough, and that made it harder to stay like into it. You know,
it seemed like Janelle Monáe's could barely keep her eyes open.
That's true for a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. It just the story was confusing because it's like, hey, well, like so when she's running out at the end, she's coming across like other like the reenactment, right?
Yeah.
But that means that there are people that are on the blue side.
Yeah, exactly.
That know about this, and you can't tell me that everyone is a bad like.
Right.
I feel like if any like normal person would to know what was going on there, it's like, hey, what's like? What if we just keep walking past you guys like with your fake bullets? Like,
right.
We can see like that's not normal. Like that's. I'll just call the cops real quick.
Well, and especially since it's 2020 and they know the rest of the world isn't like this.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not like they have to cross multiple states on the Underground Railroad to get away. They just wait till everybody's asleep and run a couple miles.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole premise of it, I just didn't feel like it was executed super well. And there were a lot of questions. One thing I did like, because I was looking for positives after I went back and looked at my notes and realized I didn't have them. There was the scene where you see them burning the cotton. So they have all of the slaves on the plantation picking cotton, and then they just have like a giant bonfire for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? That doesn't make any sense. But I thought that was a really interesting way of foreshadowing what was to come. Because the idea is they're not actually harvesting the cotton. They're just torturing black people for some reason that is never expressed or explained.
Gotcha.
And so that was kind of a neat like foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Which I think that was one where I was like, oh yeah, that's good filmmaking right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was like, and at times it's almost like a little insulting because like when the girl shows up that's pregnant, she's like, you're from, what does she say, South Carolina or wherever. And it's like, what, like if she knew who she was, why didn't she just say names?
Yeah, right.
She's like, hey, you're Janelle, a famous, writer.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
They really got to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if they wouldn't have said this was a horror, maybe the review would be a little bit better. We would also probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So I would totally be okay with that. But
yep. There would be one less negative review in the world.
That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. But it was definitely just a swing and a miss for me. I mean, like I don't get the horror aspect. in terms of like modern horror movies so this is a horror movie review that we do, and we get like there are horror things that happen, slavery being one of them.
Yeah.
Crucifixion's another.
War in general.
Yeah, that's very true. Poverty and that's a terror. But it's just like, you're also talking to the guy that just wants, like, we've said it 1,000 times, a guy with a knife, and I'm happy. That can't die. Or even if he does die, like, his sibling takes over. I'm okay with that too.
Yep. Yeah, there was not a lot here to grab me or to keep me interested in it, and I don't know.
But, it's also like, if you're one of the people that, like, are, like, racist, then you're an idiot. Right? I think that's okay to say. It's just like, if they're still having to make movies, then you're an idiot.
Yeah. Well, who's your target market, I guess, is one question, but yeah, I don't know.
I hope this isn't the future of horror movies.
Right, for sure.
If it is, then...
Well, I think, too, that this could have been done in a way that was horror. Like, I think there was enough interesting in the story that this could have been pulled off as a proper horror movie. Like, if Blumhouse had gotten a hold of this script, they could have made it super creepy and super dark and, like, interleaved the stories a little bit better, and then it all comes together at the end and culminates with this, like, crazy, escape, and then you find out at the very end, as she thinks she's just about to get caught, that she's out, like, on a modern highway, and there are the police, and she's saved, and everything's good, and, it's this narrow escape, and then you have this group of, like, modern Confederate soldiers or something that are on a compound that they're trying to defend. Like, that could be super creepy and dark and horrific. This movie was none of those things.
Yeah. What can you do, man?
I kind of wish I'd watched The Quick and the Dead instead.
You say that again. I don't even mind having Russell Crowe in it.
Oh, that's what makes it even scarier.
That's true.
You never know when he's going to go off.
That's very true. You can talk about racism. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I guess that was the scary part of anything with Mel Gibson, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Overall, it was just a miss for me. I mean, coming from the perspective of, this is a horror movie podcast. Yeah. It's not a horror movie. I wouldn't recommend it as a horror movie.
Yeah.
I think this is a movie that they should make people who get arrested for, like, racism should have to watch.
I don't think it would be effective.
No, but it's punishment.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Very fair.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Yeah, same.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Sorry, some dude is sitting outside the house just, like, revving his engine, and I really don't know what's going on.
Is that a sexual innuendo?
Could be. There we go. Now he's decided to drive away.
I couldn't hear him initially. Oh, you said revving his engine. I thought you said rubbing his engine. I was super confused.